Dr. Carter looked out the window of his medical bay and watched three different alien species walk past. A tall glided by, their movements smooth like water. Two short argued in clicking sounds while their tentacles waved in the air. A crystalline stood near the wall, their body glowing with soft blue light. This was Unity Prime, the largest space station in neutral territory, where hundreds of species lived and worked together. Had been the chief human doctor here for 2 years. He treated burns, infections, broken bones, and strange diseases from all corners of the galaxy. Some cases were easy. Others required him to study alien biology for hours just to understand what was wrong. But he loved the challenge. Every patient taught him something new about life in the universe. The door to his medical bay opened with a soft hiss. A walked in, moving slowly like every step took great effort, recognized him as an assistant to one of the diplomats. His crystalline body usually glowed with steady green light, but today the colors flickered and changed without pattern. Green shifted to yellow, then to dim orange, then back to green again. "Dr. Carter," said, his voice coming from vibrations in his crystal structure. "I need your help. The doctors cannot find what is wrong with me." Stood and gestured to the examination table. "Please, sit down and tell me what you are feeling." Sat carefully on the edge of the table. His light patterns continued to shift and flicker. "I cannot focus on my work. My energy levels drop without reason. When I try to communicate with others through our light patterns, the connection feels weak and scattered. I am tired all the time, but I cannot rest properly." "How long have these symptoms lasted?" asked as he picked up his medical scanner. 3 weeks now," replied. "It grows worse each day. Yesterday I could barely finish my duties. My supervisor is concerned." Ran the scanner over his crystalline form. The readings showed energy fluctuations throughout his body, but no signs of disease or damage. "What did the doctors say?" "The first doctor thought I had a mineral deficiency. She gave me supplements, but they did nothing. The second doctor believed I had a neural disorder affecting my light generation system. He tried frequency adjustments, but my condition grew worse." His glow dimmed to a pale yellow. "I am afraid something is seriously wrong with me." "Let me check a few more things," said. He had studied biology during his training, but humans still knew less about their species than many others. Were crystalline who communicated through light patterns and shared emotional resonance with each other. Their society was highly organized and logical, valuing order and efficiency above all else. As conducted his examination, the door opened again. Lieutenant Sophie Grant, a human security officer and friend, walked in with a. Behind her, a female entered, moving with the natural grace of her species. Her skin had the soft purple shade common among, and her large eyes reflected the light from his body. "Sorry to interrupt, Doctor," Sophie said. "I just need Ambassador to verify these access codes for the diplomatic wing." The moment entered the room, something changed. His flickering light patterns suddenly synchronized into rapid pulses of bright green and gold. His energy readings on scanner jumped significantly. Watched with interest as turned his head toward, and his light seemed to reach out in her direction. Smiled gently. "Hello, I hope you're feeling better today." Lights pulsed faster. Yes, thank you for asking, Ambassador." Sophie finished her work with, and both women left the medical bay. The moment the door closed, light patterns collapsed back into dim, irregular flickering. His energy readings dropped again. Set down his scanner and looked at his patient with new understanding. "Do you experience these symptoms all the time, or do they change based on where you are or who is around?" The thought for a moment. The symptoms are always present, but sometimes they feel different, stronger in some ways, weaker in others. "Do you work near the diplomatic wing?" "Yes, I assist Ambassador with his duties. We interact with many species throughout the day." Pulled up medical records and checked the timeline. The symptoms had started 3 weeks ago, right when the new group of junior ambassadors arrived at Unity Prime. That group included. "I need to ask you something personal," said carefully. "How do you feel when you are around Ambassador?" Lights flickered with confusion. "I do not understand the question. She is pleasant to work with, very respectful of all species and cultures. Why do you ask?" "Your energy readings changed dramatically when she entered this room. Your light patterns synchronized for the first time since you arrived. Then they collapsed again when she left." "That means nothing," said quickly. "Perhaps her presence simply affected the room's electromagnetic field." But saw something else in the way. Lights dimmed when he spoke. He had seen this pattern before in humans who their own feelings. Have you spent much time with Ambassador? We attend many of the same diplomatic functions. She often asks about culture and history. I have served as a cultural guide for her several times. Paused. She is very interested in learning, very kind in her questions. Made notes on his. I would like to run some additional tests over the next few days. I want to monitor your condition in different situations and locations. Would you be willing to wear a portable scanner? If it will help you find a cure, I will do anything, said. Attached a small device to Crystalline's shoulder. This will record your energy patterns and light frequencies continuously. Come back in 3 days, and we will review the data. After left, sat at his desk and pulled up everything he could find about biology and psychology. According to all official records, had evolved past romantic attachment. They formed partnerships based on compatible light frequencies and logical compatibility, not emotional bonds. Love, as humans understood it, did not exist in society. But had seen the data. He had watched his entire being respond to his presence. The patterns matched something very familiar, something had experienced himself long ago and had seen in countless human patients. Sophie returned to the medical bay an hour later. You had that look on your face when I left, the one you get when you figured something out. I think has a condition that doctors would never recognize, said, because according to their science, it should not exist in their species. What condition? Pulled up the scan data and showed Sophie the dramatic changes when had been in the room. I think is experiencing what humans would call being lovesick. Sophie stared at him, but do not fall in love, everyone knows that. That is what they believe, said. But what if they are wrong? What if some can experience romantic feelings, but their society has suppressed, and it for so long that they do not even recognize the symptoms? If you are right, this could change everything we know about culture, Sophie said. But it could also cause serious problems for society does not accept deviations from their norms. Looked at the data again. I need to be certain before I tell him. If I am wrong, I could cause harm, but if I am right and do nothing, his condition will continue to worsen. I have seen this in humans who deny their feelings for too long. It affects both body and mind. 3 days passed and watched the data from his portable scanner with growing certainty. The patterns were unmistakable. Every time worked near or attended the same diplomatic functions, his energy levels stabilized and his light patterns became vibrant and synchronized. When she was absent, his symptoms returned with full force. Spent his evenings researching human experiences with romantic love. The racing heartbeat when seeing someone special. The inability to focus on anything else. The mixture of joy and anxiety that came with new feelings. The physical symptoms of being apart from the person. Everything experienced had a parallel in human biology, just expressed through crystalline light instead of chemical reactions. On the morning of the 4th day, returned to the medical bay. His condition had grown worse. His lights barely flickered now, showing only dull gray and occasional flashes of faded green. The scanner recorded everything, said gently. I need to show you something. He pulled up the data on a large screen. Colorful graphs showed energy patterns over 3 days. Look at these peaks. Every single one corresponds to a time when you were near Ambassador, and these valleys happen when you are apart from her for extended periods. Studied the graphs in silence. His lights pulsed once with bright gold, then dimmed again. This must be an error in the equipment. There is no medical explanation for such a pattern. There is an explanation, said, but it is one your doctors would never consider because they do not believe it is possible for your species. Before could continue, the medical bay door opened. Doctor, the chief medical officer, entered with 2 assistants. His crystalline body glowed with stern red patterns that indicated displeasure. Dr. Carter, said formally, I have been informed that you continue to examine despite 2 qualified physicians already providing diagnoses and treatment. Their treatments did not work, replied calmly. I am trying a different approach. A human approach, said with skepticism clear in his vibrating voice. You have been monitoring his interactions with other beings. Why? Took a breath. This moment would define everything that followed. Because I believe is suffering from a condition that medical science does not recognize. He is experiencing what humans call being in love. The silence that followed felt heavy. Dr. Slights turned sharp red with what recognized as anger mixed with disbelief. That is impossible. Do not experience primitive emotional attachments. We evolved past such irrational biological responses millions of years ago. With respect, doctor, the data suggests otherwise, said. He displayed the graphs again. These patterns do not lie. His entire energy system responds to the presence of one specific individual. His symptoms are not physical or neurological in nature. They are emotional. Emotions do not cause energy fluctuations insisted. We are crystalline beings, governed by frequencies and harmonic resonance, not chemical feelings like humans. Move to stand beside. May I explain what I believe is happening, not as a challenge to medical knowledge, but as a human who has studied both our species and yours. Looked between the two doctors, his lights dim with confusion and distress. Please, I just want to understand what is wrong with me. Turn to face both. In human biology, love is a complex interaction of brain chemistry, neural pathways, and hormonal responses. When humans fall in love, their bodies release chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin. Their heart rate increases around the person they love. They cannot stop thinking about that person. They feel joy in their presence and distress in their absence. We know this about humans, doctor said. It is a weakness that leads to irrational decisions and social instability. Is it? Asked. Human civilization has thrived because of our capacity for love. It drives us to protect each other, to build communities, to sacrifice for those we care about. Love made humans strong, not weak. He pulled up new data on the screen. Is not experiencing human chemistry because he does not have human biology, but he is experiencing something parallel. His crystalline structure resonates with Ambassador's emotional field. His light patterns synchronize with her presence. When she is near, his entire being becomes more stable and vibrant. When she is absent, his systems become chaotic and dim. This is resonance interference, nothing more, Doctor argued. Some beings simply have incompatible frequencies that cause disruption. Then why do the disruptions feel pleasant too? Asked. Why does he describe Ambassador as kind and interesting? Why does he volunteer to spend time with her as a cultural guide when he could delegate that task to others? Slights flickered with sudden realization. I did choose to spend time with her. I always looked forward to our conversations. I thought it was because she asked good questions about history. And perhaps that is part of it, said gently. But your body is telling a different story. Your crystalline structure is drawn to her in a way that goes beyond professional interest or cultural exchange. Dr. Slights flashed with frustration. Even if what you suggest were true, which I do not accept, society has no place for such attachments. They lead to chaos and disorder. Our partnerships are based on logical compatibility, not feelings. But is already experiencing chaos, pointed out. His work performance is suffering, his health is declining. By denying what is happening, you are making his condition worse, not better. Stood suddenly, his lights pulsing with agitation. Are you saying that I have developed feelings for Ambassador, romantic feelings? I am saying your body is responding to her presence in ways that parallel human romantic attraction, explained. Whether you call it love or resonance or something else entirely, the effect is the same. You are drawn to her, and being apart from her is causing you distress. This is absurd, Doctor declared. I will not stand here and listen to human superstition masquerade as medical diagnosis. I order you to cease this examination immediately and return to the medical center. But did not move. His lights had changed to confused swirls of blue and yellow. Dr. Carter, if what you say is true, what should I do? My people do not have treatments for such a condition. We do not even have words for it in our language. Metz gazed steadily. The first step is acknowledging what you feel. The second is understanding that feelings are not diseases to be cured. They are experiences to be understood and, if you choose, embraced. You would encourage him to embrace instability, Doctor said with anger, to abandon the logical principles that have guided civilization for eons. I would encourage him to be honest with himself, replied. Humans learned long ago that denying our emotions only makes them stronger. They do not disappear just because we refuse to acknowledge them. They grow in the dark until they consume us. Sophie entered the medical bay, carrying her. She looked at the tense scene and immediately understood something serious was happening. Sorry to interrupt. You asked me to research something. Yes, said, grateful for the support. Did you find any historical records of experiencing unexplained medical conditions similar to us? Sophie nodded. I searched through Unity Prime's medical archives going back 50 years. I found 17 cases of young presenting with energy fluctuations, light pattern disruptions, and focus problems. All were diagnosed as mineral deficiencies or neural disorders. None of the treatments had lasting success. Doctor's lights flickered with uncertainty for the first time. Sophie continued. What is interesting is that all 17 cases occurred in who spent significant time around other species, particularly species known for strong emotional expression like humans, and in 12 of the cases, the symptoms began shortly after the patient formed what they described as close friendships with members of those species. Looked at Doctor. What if this has been happening all along, but your medical science attributed it to physical causes because the emotional explanation was considered impossible? Sat back down heavily on the examination table. There are others like me. It appears so, Sophie said gently. And if Dr. Carter is right, they have all been suffering because their real condition was never properly diagnosed. Doctor stood silent for a long moment. His lights shifted through several colors as he processed this information. Finally, he spoke in a quieter tone. This is a serious claim, Dr. Carter. If true, it challenges fundamental understanding of biology and psychology. It would cause significant disruption to our society. I understand, said. But is societal comfort more important than, and the of others who might be suffering from the same condition? I need time to review this data, Doctor said, and to consult with the medical council. This matter is too significant for one doctor to decide alone. After Doctor left with his assistants, remained sitting in silence. His lights pulsed slowly with deep blue patterns that had learned indicated contemplation or sadness. What happens now? Asked quietly. Sat down beside him. Now we prove that what you are experiencing is real and that it is nothing to be ashamed of. And we find a way to help you, whether that means learning to manage these feelings or, if you wish, finding the courage to share them. With his lights brightened slightly. If that is what you want, said. Lights dimmed again. Even if I wanted to, our species have never formed romantic bonds. It would be seen as unnatural by both our peoples. Smiled sadly. Humans have a long history of people being told their love is wrong or unnatural, sometimes by their families, sometimes by their societies, sometimes by their governments. But we learned that love itself is never wrong, only the fear of it is. You speak from experience, observed. I do, admitted. I loved someone once. My wife, Emma. She died 5 years ago from an illness I could not cure. That loss drove me to study xenobiology, to learn everything I could about different forms of life, because I never wanted to feel helpless again when someone needed healing. I am sorry for your loss, said, his lights softening to gentle green. Thank you, said. But the point is that even though loving her caused me pain when I lost her, I would not change a single moment we had together. Love is worth the risk. It is worth the pain, because it also brings joy unlike anything else in the universe. Considered this, I need time to think about everything you have told me. Of course, said. But while you think, remember that your feelings are valid, regardless of what anyone else says. You are not broken. You are not sick. You are simply experiencing something beautiful that your people forgot how to recognize. After left, Sophie joined at his desk. You really think you can prove this to the medical council? Spent the next 2 days gathering evidence. Sophie helped him access medical records from across Unity Prime, and the pattern became impossible to ignore. 19 young had presented with similar symptoms over the past decade. All worked in environments with high exposure to other species. All had formed close connections with specific individuals, and all had been misdiagnosed with physical conditions that treatments could not fix. He was preparing his report when Sophie burst into his medical bay with urgent news. I found something, she said, pulling up files on his display. 3 left Unity Prime in the past 5 years to live on mixed species colonies. According to their departure records, all 3 cited personal reasons and requested transfers away from traditional communities. Did they recover from their symptoms? Asked. I contacted them directly, Sophie said. 2 refused to speak with me, but one, a female named, agreed to talk. She admitted that she formed a partnership with a male on the colony where she lives now. She said leaving traditional society was difficult, but her health improved dramatically once she stopped trying to suppress what she felt. Felt a surge of hope. This proves that what is experiencing is not unique. It is a real phenomenon that some have been dealing with alone. There is more, Sophie continued. Said she knows of at least 6 other on various mixed colonies who formed romantic bonds with other species. They keep it quiet because they fear judgment from their home world. But they are all healthier and happier than they were when they tried to conform to traditional expectations. Saved the information to add to his growing case file. I need to speak with again, and I think it is time to include in this conversation. Are you sure that is wise? Sophie asked. What if she does not share his feelings? That could make everything worse for him. It could, admitted. But I watched her in the medical bay that day. She asked about his health with genuine concern, and I have seen her look in his direction during diplomatic events. I do not think his feelings are one-sided. Sophie nodded slowly. They are an emotionally intelligent species. If anyone could recognize what is experiencing, it would be one of them. Should I arrange a meeting? Yes, said, but make it seem natural. Perhaps a follow-up medical consultation where Ambassador happens to be present as a witness to cross-species medical procedures. That will give me a reason to observe their interaction under controlled conditions. 2 days later, arrived at the medical bay as arranged. She wore diplomatic robes that shimmered with purple and silver patterns. Her large eyes showed curiosity and concern. Lieutenant Grant said you requested my presence for a medical observation, said. I am happy to help, though I confess I do not understand what you need from me. Thank you for coming, said. Please have a seat, should arrive shortly for his follow-up examination. Settled into a chair near the window. How is doing? I have noticed he seemed unwell recently. He used to attend many of the diplomatic functions, but I have not seen him in over a week. His condition has been challenging to diagnose, said carefully, but I believe I am getting closer to understanding the root cause. The door opened and entered. His lights were dim as usual, flickering with gray and pale blue, but the moment he saw, everything changed. His crystalline body blazed with bright gold and green patterns. The colors pulsed in steady, rhythmic waves. His medical scanner, which he had ready, showed energy levels jump by 40% in a matter of seconds. Stopped in his tracks. Ambassador, I did not expect to see you here. Dr. Carter asked me to assist with a medical observation, explained. She smiled warmly. It is good to see you. I have missed our conversations about philosophy. The golden lights intensified. I have missed them as well. I apologize for my absence. I have not been well. So I heard, said with genuine concern. I hope Dr. Carter can help you recover soon. Watched the interaction with clinical attention while also noting the emotional undercurrents. Empathic nature meant she could likely sense emotional state to some degree, and from the way her expression softened when she looked at him, suspected she was not immune to whatever connection existed between them. Please sit on the examination table, said. I want to run the same tests I did before, but this time with Ambassador present. I am studying how different environmental factors affect your energy patterns. As conducted his examination, he deliberately asked questions that required both and to participate. He asked about their work together, about the diplomatic events they had both attended, about their cultural exchange conversations. With each question, his lights grew brighter and more stable. His energy readings remained high and steady. There was none of the flickering uncertainty or dim exhaustion that had plagued him for weeks. He was, in every measurable way, healthy when was near. Watched changing lights with growing fascination. Your patterns are beautiful right now. I have never seen such vibrant harmonics in a before. Lights pulsed with what recognized as embarrassment. You can see them. Of course, said, are naturally attuned to emotional resonance. Your light patterns feel warm and welcoming. They remind me of sunlight on crystal towers. Made a note on his, could perceive emotional content in light patterns. That might explain why seemed drawn to as well. She could sense his feelings even if he did not fully understand them himself. Ambassador, said carefully, in culture, how do your people understand emotional connections between individuals? Turned her attention to. Believe that all beings are connected through emotional resonance. When two individuals share compatible emotional frequencies, they naturally feel drawn to each other. We call it heart harmony. It is the foundation of all meaningful relationships in our culture, whether friendship or romantic partnership. And do believe heart harmony can exist between different species? Asked. Absolutely, said without hesitation. The heart speaks a universal language that transcends physical form. I have felt strong emotional connections with humans, even, she glanced at. Some connections feel particularly strong and unexplainable. We believe those are the most important ones to honor. Slights flickered with hope and fear mixed together. But do not experience such connections. We form partnerships based on frequency compatibility and logical assessment, not emotional resonance. Studied for a long moment. May I be honest with you? Please, said his voice uncertain. I have worked with many during my time here, said gently. Most of them maintain steady, predictable light patterns that reflect your cultural values of order and logic. But you are different. Your lights respond to conversation, to ideas, to interaction. They show curiosity and warmth and genuine engagement. I found that quality fascinating from the first time we spoke. You did? Asked, his lights brightening with surprise. Smiled. I requested you specifically as my cultural guide because I enjoyed the way you explained history. You did not just recite facts. You showed passion for your people's achievements. That passion translated into your light patterns in ways I found compelling. Watchd's energy readings climb even higher. The connection between these two was undeniable, but he needed to be certain before moving forward with his diagnosis. Ambassador said, what I am about to ask may seem unusual, but I need to understand something for medical purposes. When you are around, how do you feel? Considered the question with the thoughtfulness her species was known for. I feel calm and energized at the same time, if that makes sense. His presence brings me peace, but also excitement for conversation and connection. When I do not see him for several days, I find myself wondering how he is doing and looking for reasons to visit areas where I might encounter him. His entire body blazed with golden light so bright that had to adjust his scanner settings. And you, asked gently, how do you feel when you are around Ambassador? Stood silent for a long moment. His lights shifted through several colors before settling into a soft mixture of gold and blue. I feel like my frequencies align with something I did not know I was searching for, like a resonance that makes me more complete. When she is near, everything feels right. When she is absent, I feel diminished. Stood and walked closer to, you feel that way about me. I have been told such feelings are impossible for my species, said quietly. That they are primitive and irrational, but yes, I feel that way. Reached out and carefully placed her hand near his crystalline arm, not quite touching but close enough that her emotional field interacted with his light patterns. The effect was immediate. Lights synchronized with her presence, creating patterns that pulsed in harmony with her breathing. This does not feel impossible, said softly. This feels like the most natural thing in the universe. Documented everything, his medical scanner recording data that would change medical understanding forever. But before he could speak, the medical bay door opened abruptly. Doctor entered, accompanied by 3 other officials. Their lights pulsed with stern red patterns. Dr. Carter, said formally, the medical council has reviewed your preliminary findings. We have serious concerns about your methods and conclusions. We are here to take back to the medical center for proper treatment. Lights immediately dimmed, the golden harmony fading to anxious gray. I do not want to leave Dr. Carter's care. This is not your decision to make, one of the officials said. Your condition affects not just you but our entire diplomatic mission. We cannot have a representative displaying such unstable energy patterns. It reflects poorly on our species. His patterns are only unstable when he suppresses his true feelings, said firmly. You saw the data I sent you. When acknowledges his emotional connection to Ambassador, his health improves dramatically. Emotional connection is not a medical diagnosis, doctor said. It is human superstition. Stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with quiet authority. With respect, doctor, my species has studied emotional resonance for. What I feel between and myself is real and measurable by our standards. To deny it would be to deny the foundation of science. Science is not science, the official replied coldly. Then perhaps science is incomplete, said. Perhaps after millions of years of denying emotions, your species has forgotten that some still experience them. The evidence is standing right in front of you. Doctor's lights flickered with uncertainty. Even if what you claim is true, allowing to pursue this connection would set a dangerous precedent. Others might believe they too can abandon logic in favor of feelings. Or, Sophie interjected from where she stood by the door, others who have been suffering in silence might finally understand what is wrong with them and find help. The officials conferred among themselves in rapid light language that could not fully understand. Finally, Doctor spoke again. The Galactic Medical Council must review this case. If Dr. Carter wishes to maintain his diagnosis, he must present his evidence before the full council. They will determine whether his human interpretation has merit or whether should receive traditional treatment. When asked, 1 week from today, Doctor said. Until then, we'll remain in your care, but under close observation. Any further deterioration in his condition will result in immediate transfer to medical authority. After the officials left, sat down heavily, his lights had dimmed to barely visible gray. I have caused so much trouble. You have done nothing wrong, said, moving to sit beside him. You simply feel something your people told you was impossible. That is not trouble, that is courage. Looked at her. Even if Dr. Carter is right about what I am experiencing, what future could we possibly have? My people will never accept this. Yours might not either. Let us worry about the future later, said gently. For now, let us focus on helping Dr. Carter prove that what we feel is real. Looked at the three of them and felt the weight of what was coming. He had 1 week before the hearing passed in a blur of preparation. Worked 16-hour days compiling data, reviewing medical literature from dozens of species, and building his case. Sophie helped him track down the living on mixed species colonies. 3 agreed to testify remotely about their experiences. The who had partnered with agreed to appear in person. The hearing chamber was located in the diplomatic sector of Unity Prime. It was a large circular room designed to accommodate representatives from multiple species. Seating areas adjusted for different body types and environmental needs. The Galactic Medical Council consisted of 12 members, each representing a major spacefaring civilization. They sat in an elevated arc facing the presentation area where would make his case. Arrived early with Sophie and waited near the entrance, offering a reassuring smile. His lights were dim with anxiety, flickering between gray and pale blue. How are you feeling? Asked. Terrified, admitted. What if the council rules against you? What if they force me to undergo neural suppression therapy? That will not happen, said with more confidence than he felt. The evidence speaks for itself. We just need to help them see it clearly. Ambassador Helen Torres, the senior human diplomat on Unity Prime, approached them. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Dr. Carter, she greeted him formally. This hearing has attracted significant attention. Representatives from 17 species have requested permission to observe. The outcome could have implications far beyond one patient. I understand the stakes, Ambassador said. Helen studied him carefully. I reviewed your case files. Your evidence is compelling, but you are asking the council to overturn centuries of medical understanding. They will not do that lightly. You need to give them something more than data. You need to make them feel why this matters. Before could respond, Doctor arrived with a delegation of medical experts. Their lights pulsed with confident red patterns. They took their seats on the opposite side of the chamber, clearly prepared to challenge every point would make. The council members filed in. Representing species had studied during his preparation. There was the representative, a being of flowing energy contained in a crystalline sphere. The council member moved with characteristic grace. Others represented species knew less about, but all carried the authority of their positions. Council Arbiter, a member of the species known for their impartiality and analytical minds, called the hearing to order. His 4 arms gestured in formal patterns as he spoke. This council convenes to examine the case of patient and the diagnosis provided by Dr. Carter of Earth. Doctor of the Medical Authority has challenged this diagnosis as fundamentally flawed and culturally insensitive. We will hear arguments from both sides before rendering judgment. Doctor stood first. His presentation was organized and logical, exactly what expected from a physician. He displayed brain scans, energy readings, and detailed explanations of biology. are crystalline who evolved beyond emotional instability millions of years ago, explained. Our species maintains social cohesion through frequency harmony and logical partnerships. What Dr. Carter interprets as romantic love is actually electromagnetic interference caused by incompatible resonance patterns. The proper treatment is frequency realignment therapy, which will eliminate the disruptive signals and restore normal function. He showed images of medical scans with annotations highlighting various energy fluctuations. These patterns are consistent with neural pathway disruption, not emotional states. To suggest otherwise shows a fundamental misunderstanding of physiology. Several council members nodded, taking notes, felt the weight of their skepticism. He was a human doctor trying to convince beings who had studied medicine for species lifetimes longer than he had been alive. When it was turn, he walked to the center of the chamber. He pulled up his own data on the large displays surrounding them. Council members, I do not dispute Doctor's expertise in biology, but I suggest his understanding is incomplete because it is based on a false premise. The premise that cannot experience romantic emotions. He displayed the comparison charts he had prepared. These graphs show energy patterns from 19 different over the past decade, all presenting with similar symptoms. Traditional treatments failed in every case. But look at what happens when we chart these patterns against the presence of specific individuals these spent significant time with. The data showed clear correlations, energy spikes, pattern stabilization, harmonic synchronization, all occurring in the presence of particular beings. This is not random interference, continued. This is systematic, predictable response, and it mirrors patterns we see in every species that experiences romantic attraction. The expression is different, yes, because biology is different, but the underlying phenomenon is the same. Doctor stood. You are anthropomorphizing biology, projecting human experiences onto a species fundamentally different from your own. Am I asked? Let me show you something else. He displayed testimonies from and the other living on mixed colonies. Their recorded statements described feelings of connection, of being drawn to specific individuals, of health improving when they stopped fighting what they felt. These are speaking about their own experiences, said. Are they also anthropomorphizing themselves? A council member from the leaned forward. Dr. Carter, you mentioned that romantic attraction appears across multiple species. Can you elaborate? Yes, said, grateful for the opening. I have studied bonding patterns in 37 different spacefaring species. 29 show clear evidence of pair bonding behavior driven by emotional connection rather than purely logical mate selection. The biological mechanisms vary wildly. Humans use chemical signals, use emotional resonance, use energy field harmonization, but the outcome is the same. Individuals form strong attachments to specific others that enhance their and survival. He pulled up more comparative data. Evolution tends toward patterns that work. If romantic love or pair bonding exists across multiple unrelated species, it suggests this is not a weakness or primitive trait. It is a successful evolutionary strategy that manifests in different ways depending on biology. The council member spoke, her voice melodic and thoughtful. I have reviewed the emotional resonance readings from an ambassador. What they share is consistent with what my species would recognize as deep emotional connection. To dismiss this as mere interference seems willfully blind to evidence. Doctor responded quickly. Biology is built around emotional processing. You see emotions everywhere because that is your species' nature, but are different. Are we? A voice called from the observation area. Everyone turned, stood, her crystalline form glowing with steady purple light. She walked into the presentation area without permission, her lights pulsing with determination. I am, she said clearly. I am, and I am in love with a named I have been for 3 years. The chamber fell silent. Doctor's lights flickered with shock. Continued. I suffered the same symptoms experiences. I went to doctors who told me I had mineral deficiencies, neural disorders, frequency imbalances. I tried every treatment they prescribed. Nothing worked because they were treating the wrong problem. I was not sick. I was in love. She walked to stand beside. When I finally left society and accepted my feelings, all my symptoms disappeared. I am healthier now than I have ever been. My energy patterns are stable. My work performance improved. My life has meaning and joy I never experienced following social expectations. You were always an anomaly, Doctor said, but his lights showed uncertainty now. Your case does not represent the broader population. Does it not? Asked. She pulled up a data file on the displays. I have been researching this issue since I heard about this hearing. I found 47 cases over the past 30 years of presenting with unexplained symptoms that match this pattern. 47 individuals who were misdiagnosed and mistreated because medicine refuses to acknowledge our capacity for romantic love. The council members looked at the data with renewed interest. Arbiter's four arms moved in contemplative patterns. Felt the momentum shifting. Council members, I am not asking you to change culture. That is not my place or my goal. I am simply asking you to recognize that some experience emotions their society tells them are impossible. Those individuals deserve accurate diagnosis and treatment options that actually address their condition. Doctor stood again. And what treatment do you propose? Teaching to abandon logic and rationality in favor of unpredictable feelings. Shook his head. I propose teaching them to understand their feelings, to recognize them as natural biological responses, not defects, to give them the choice about how to proceed, rather than forcing suppression therapy on them. Choice leads to chaos, Doctor argued. Society functions because we all follow the same principles. Does it? Sophie called from the audience. She stood and addressed the council. I am Lieutenant Sophie Grant, Human Security Officer. I have access to Unity Prime's medical and personnel records. Over the past decade, 53 young have left Unity Prime citing vague personal reasons. They requested transfers away from traditional communities. Many of them had medical files showing the same unexplained symptoms we are discussing today. She pulled up additional data. Those 53 individuals are not randomly distributed. 90% worked in roles with high exposure to other species. 85% formed documented friendships with members of emotionally expressive species before their departure. And according to follow-up records, nearly all of them reported improved health and satisfaction after leaving society. The evidence was overwhelming now. Even Dr. Slights had dimmed with uncertainty. Arbiter raised one arm for silence. Dr. Carter, you have presented compelling evidence that some experience what you call romantic love. But before this council can rule in your favor, we need to address a critical question. Is this a medical condition requiring treatment, or is it simply a natural variation in biology that their culture has suppressed? Consider the question carefully. This was the moment Helen had warned him about. Data alone would not be enough. Arbiter, may I tell you about my wife? Asked. The Arbiter's eyes showed surprise at the personal turn, but he nodded. Her name was Emma, said quietly. She was a xenobiology researcher. We met during my medical training. From the first conversation, I knew she was special. My heart would race when I saw her. I thought about her constantly. I felt complete happiness in her presence and emptiness when we were apart. He pulled up an image of Emma on the display, a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. Several council members leaned forward with interest. By every medical measure, what I experienced was a chemical reaction. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, neural pathway activation. I could have taken medication to suppress those responses if I had wanted to. But I chose not to. Because those feelings, while rooted in biology, represented something more important than chemical reactions. They represented my capacity to connect with another being at the deepest level. His voice grew stronger. Emma and I had 12 years together before she died from an illness I could not cure. Those 12 years shaped who I am today. They taught me about sacrifice, commitment, joy, and loss. They made me a better doctor and a better person. If someone had told me at the beginning that loving her would eventually cause me pain, I would have chosen to love her anyway, because the love itself was worth everything. He turned to face the council directly. This is not about whether symptoms are biological. Of course they are. Everything we feel has a biological basis. The question is whether we honor those feelings as valid and meaningful, or whether we dismiss them as malfunctions to be corrected. Society has chosen suppression. I am asking this council to choose recognition instead. The chamber was silent. Even Doctor stood without speaking, his lights dim and contemplative. Stood slowly from his seat. His lights pulsed with gold and blue as he addressed the council. I am the patient at the center of this case. For weeks I believed I was sick, defective, broken. My own people's doctors could not help me because they were trying to fix something that was not broken. Dr. Carter gave me a different answer. He told me I was not sick, I was feeling. Slights brightened. I love Ambassador. I do not know how it happened or why my biology allows it when others of my kind supposedly cannot experience such feelings. But it is real, and I choose to acknowledge it rather than suppress it. If that makes me an anomaly among, so be it. I would rather be an honest anomaly than a miserable conformist. Stood from her seat in the observation area. And I feel the same connection too. Culture teaches us to honor emotional bonds wherever they appear. I ask this council to do the same. Arbiter conferred with the other council members in low tones. After several minutes of discussion, he raised all four arms for attention. This council will deliberate on the evidence presented. We will issue our ruling tomorrow at midday. Until then, all parties are dismissed. As the chamber emptied, felt Sophie's hand on his shoulder. That was powerful, she said quietly, talking about Emma. It needed to be said, replied. They needed to understand that this is not just about medical classifications. It is about honoring the full range of experience that beings can have. Approached with beside him, his lights were brighter than had seen them in weeks. Thank you, Dr. Carter, said. Regardless of what the council decides tomorrow, you have given me barely slept that night. He kept reviewing his testimony, wondering if he had said enough, if the evidence had been compelling enough, if the council would be willing to challenge centuries of established medical understanding. Sophie found him in his medical bay at dawn, starring its most recent energy readings. You did everything you could, Sophie said, setting down 2 cups of coffee. Now you have to trust the council to make the right decision. And if they do not, asked, if they rule that must undergo neural suppression therapy, then we fight that decision, Sophie said firmly. But let us not assume the worst before we know the outcome. At midday, the hearing chamber filled again. This time, even more observers crowded the available space. Word had spread throughout Unity Prime about the case. Representatives from dozens of species wanted to witness the ruling that could reshape understanding of emotions and biology across the galaxy. Sat with And. His lights flickered nervously between gray and pale green, held his crystalline hand carefully, offering comfort through her emotional resonance. Across the chamber, Doctor sat with his delegation, their lights steady and formal. Arbiter entered with the other council members. His 4 arms moved in solemn patterns as he called the chamber to order. This council has deliberated extensively on the case presented by Dr. Carter regarding patient. We have reviewed all evidence, testimony, and medical data provided by both Dr. Carter and Dr. What follows is our unanimous ruling. Felt his heart pound. Unanimous could mean anything. Arbiter continued. First, we must address the fundamental question presented to this council. Can experience what other species term romantic love or emotional pair bonding? After examining the evidence, this council finds that the answer is yes. Some possess the biological capacity for romantic emotional attachment, regardless of what their cultural norms suggest. A murmur ran through the chamber. Doctor's lights flickered with shock. His entire body blazed with golden light. The evidence is overwhelming, the Arbiter continued. Multiple documented cases, cross-species comparative analysis, testimony from living with acknowledged emotional bonds, and the clear pattern correlations shown in patient response data. To deny this capacity would be to deny observable reality. The council member added her voice. Furthermore, the emotional resonance readings confirm that what experiences with Ambassador meets every scientific criterion my species uses to identify genuine romantic connection. This is not interference or malfunction. This is authentic emotional bonding. Arbiter raised his arms again. Therefore, this council rules that Dr. Carter's diagnosis is medically sound and culturally appropriate, is not suffering from a neural disorder or mineral deficiency. He is experiencing a natural emotional state that has been due to gaps in medical understanding. Felt relief wash over him like a wave, but the Arbiter was not finished. However, diagnosis alone does not resolve this case. We must also determine appropriate treatment. Doctor advocates for neural suppression therapy to eliminate the emotional responses. Dr. Carter advocates for acceptance and management of these emotions. The question before this council is which approach serves the patient's best interests. Doctor stood. Arbiter with respect, allowing to pursue emotional attachments will destabilize our social structure. For millions of years, Our civilization has functioned through logical partnerships and controlled social bonds. To change this now would create chaos. Your concern is noted, the arbiter replied. But this council does not govern social policy. We govern medical ethics across all species, and medical ethics requires that we prioritize patient above cultural convenience. The council member spoke, its energy voice resonating through the chamber. The evidence shows that who suppress these emotions experience declining health. Those who acknowledge and accept their feelings show improved health and life satisfaction. From a medical standpoint, suppression causes harm while acceptance promotes healing. The choice is clear. Arbiter nodded. This council rules that treatment decisions for emotional conditions must rest with the patient, not with their cultural authorities. Has the right to choose whether to suppress his feelings through neural therapy or to accept and integrate them into his life. No one, including medical authorities, may impose treatment upon him without his informed consent. Stood his lights pulsing with brilliant gold. I choose acceptance, I choose to feel. The chamber erupted in reactions. Some observers showed approval through their species-specific gestures. Others showed concern or disapproval, but the ruling stood. Arbiter raised all four arms for silence. There is one final matter. This council recognizes that patient is not unique. Evidence suggests dozens or perhaps hundreds may experience similar emotional capacity. Therefore, we issue the following mandates to the galactic medical community. He read from a formal document. First, emotional conditions shall be recognized as legitimate medical concerns across all species, requiring diagnosis and treatment based on patient rather than cultural norms. Second, medical training programs must include cross-species comparative study of emotional bonding and attachment patterns. Third, patients presenting with unexplained symptoms should be evaluated for emotional causation before proceeding to invasive physical treatments. The implications were staggering. Had not just one's case, he had changed galactic medical practice. Finally, the arbiter concluded, this council commends Dr. Carter for his diagnostic insight and his courage in challenging established medical understanding. His work exemplifies the highest standards of medical care across species boundaries. This hearing is concluded. The chamber dissolved into noise as everyone reacted to the ruling at once, found himself surrounded by well-wishers and questioners, but his attention remained on, whose lights now blazed with colors had never seen in a before. Pure joy translated into luminescence. Embraced carefully, mindful of his crystalline structure. You are free, she said softly, free to feel everything you have been holding back. Doctor approached slowly, his lights dim and uncertain. Dr. Carter, I owe you an acknowledgement. I was wrong. Not about biology as I understood it, but about the completeness of that understanding. You saw what I could not see because I was constrained by my culture's assumptions. Thank you, Doctor, said, offering his hand in the human gesture of respect. This was never about proving you wrong. It was about finding the truth that would help and others like him. Lights flickered with what recognized as regret. I must confess something to you, in private if possible. They moved to a quiet corner of the chamber. Doctor dimmed his lights further, speaking in low vibrations. When I was young, before I became a doctor, I experienced similar symptoms too. I felt drawn to a student at the medical academy where I trained. My light patterns would synchronize with her presence. I thought constantly about our conversations. I experienced everything you described in your testimony about human love. Listened without interrupting. My mentor diagnosed me with frequency imbalance and prescribed suppression therapy. I underwent the treatment and the feelings disappeared. I have lived my entire adult life believing I was cured of a defect. His lights pulsed with sadness. Now I understand that what I lost was not a sickness. It was the capacity to connect with someone at a level my culture refused to acknowledge. It is not too late, said gently. The capacity for feeling does not disappear completely with suppression therapy. It can be recovered with patience and proper treatment. Perhaps, said, but the student is long gone, living her life somewhere in the galaxy. That chance is lost forever. I tell you this so you understand why I fought your diagnosis so hard. I could not accept that I had been wrong about myself for so many years, that I had lost something precious because I followed my culture's dictates without question. Your confession takes courage, said, and it may help others who face the same choice. Perhaps you could work with me to develop treatment protocols for who wish to explore their emotional capacity. Slights brightened slightly. I would consider that. If my experience, however painful, can help others avoid my mistakes, perhaps it was not entirely wasted. Over the following weeks, worked with to develop what he called emotional integration therapy. It was not about suppressing or eliminating feelings for. It was about helping his crystalline biology adapt to process emotions his system was not culturally trained to handle. The treatment combined frequency harmonization with psychological counseling, taught techniques humans used to manage strong emotions, breathing exercises adapted for respiration, meditation practices to help center his light patterns, ways to communicate his feelings effectively to who was still learning how to interpret emotional expression. His health improved dramatically. His energy levels stabilized at optimal ranges. His light patterns became vibrant and expressive, showing colors and harmonics that fascinated researchers. He returned to full duties as a diplomatic assistant, now serving as a bridge between logic and other species' emotional perspectives. Most significantly, his relationship with flourished. They became the first officially documented romantic partnership between A and A. Their bond became the subject of study for researchers across multiple species, all trying to understand how two such different forms of biology could create emotional harmony. Other young began seeking help. At first, they came quietly, afraid of judgment from their communities. But as word spread about the Council's ruling and its recovery, more came openly. Documented 12 cases in the first month alone, all showing the same pattern had experienced. Returned to Unity Prime to help establish a support network for exploring their emotional capacity. She worked with Dr., who had committed himself to understanding what he had missed throughout his career. Together, they published research that challenged fundamental assumptions in medical science. The implications rippled across the galaxy. Other species began their own medical assumptions about emotions and bonding. They discovered that their tentacle color changes during mating were not just biological reflexes, but emotional expressions they had been ignoring for generations. They found that some of their energy beings formed attachments that went beyond their communal consciousness norms. Everywhere, beings who had felt different, wrong, or broken discovered that their feelings were valid and natural, just unexpressed by their culture's dominant narratives. 6 months after the hearing, stood in his medical bay reviewing his latest patient notes. His files showed consistent improvement across all metrics. The notes included regular updates on his relationship with, which had deepened into a committed partnership recognized by both their governments as unprecedented but legitimate. Sophie joined him, carrying news from the latest Galactic Medical Conference. Your paper on cross-species emotional bonding won the Humanitarian Medicine Award. They want you to give the keynote address at next year's conference. I suppose I should prepare something appropriately academic, said with a slight smile. Or you could just tell them the truth, Sophie suggested. That you diagnosed an alien with love sickness because you understood what love feels like. That sometimes the best medicine is not suppressing what makes us different, but accepting what makes us whole. Looked at Emma's picture, which he still kept on his desk. She would have loved this case. She always believed that emotions were what connected all life in the universe, regardless of biology. She was right, Sophie said, and you proved it. Later that evening, met, and at one of Unity Prime's observation decks. They stood together watching ships come and go from the station, travelers from hundreds of worlds moving through the neutral space. Lights pulsed with steady golden contentment. Dr. Carter, I wanted to thank you again, not just for diagnosing my condition, but for giving me the courage to honor my own experiences over my culture's expectations. You found that courage yourself, said. I just helped you see it was there. Smiled, what you did changed more than just life. You changed how the entire galaxy thinks about emotions and biology. That is an extraordinary gift. The galaxy changed itself, replied. I just asked the right questions. The answers were always there, waiting for someone to look without prejudice. Moved closer to their different biology, creating a beautiful harmony of light and presence. What we have should not be possible according to everything my people believe. A crystalline being and an empathic being, so different in form and function. But here we are, together and complete. Love does not care about biology, said, thinking of Emma again. It finds a way regardless of what form we take or what world we come from. That is what makes it universal. That is what makes it powerful. A diplomatic ship docked at the station. Through the window, watched a delegation disembark. Among them, he noticed several young whose light patterns showed unusual variation and expressiveness, more like than traditional. "The next generation," said, following's gaze. "They grow up knowing they have choices, that they can embrace their feelings without shame. Because of what you did, they will never have to suffer in confusion like I did." Felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was why he had become a doctor, not just to treat disease, but to understand the full complexity of life across the universe, to see beyond the surface of biology into the deeper truths that connected all beings. "Do you miss Earth?" asked suddenly. "Your home world, your own people?" Considered the question. "Sometimes, but I think Emma would say I am exactly where I belong, helping beings find healing and understanding across all the boundaries that try to divide us. That was always our shared dream." Slights pulsed with gratitude. "Then we are fortunate she dreamed it, and fortunate that you carried that dream to the stars." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the endless flow of life through Unity Prime. Human and three species that should have remained separate according to old assumptions. Three beings connected by the universal truth that had helped the galaxy rediscover. That hearts, whatever form they took, spoke a language older than civilization and stronger than biology. A language of connection, understanding, and love that transcended every difference the universe could create. And sometimes, all it took was one doctor willing to listen to what others dismissed, one patient brave enough to feel what others, and one diagnosis that changed everything. The diagnosis that proved love sickness was not a weakness to be cured, but a gift to be celebrated. A reminder that among all the diversity of life in the cosmos, some things remained forever universal. Smiled as he watched, and together, their happiness evident in every gesture and light pulse. This was why humanity had joined the galactic community, not to impose their ways on others, but to share their understanding that emotions were not obstacles to overcome, but bridges to cross. That sometimes the greatest strength was not the ability to suppress what we feel, but the courage to embrace it. And that message, delivered through one case of alien love sickness, was now spreading across the stars like light through crystal. Changing one heart, one species, one galaxy at a time. "Invaluable, you have given me permission to feel without shame." Smiled, "You always had that permission, I just helped you see it." As they left the chamber together, could only hope that the council would see it too. Tomorrow would determine not just fate, but the fate of every who had ever felt emotions their society told them were impossible. Tomorrow, the universe would decide whether love truly was universal, or whether it remained the exclusive domain of species bold enough to acknowledge it. To convince the Galactic Medical Council that love could exist where science said it could not. 1 week to change understanding of an entire species. 1 week to prove that hearts, in whatever form they took, spoke a universal language that transcended biology and culture. It was the most important case of his career, and failure would mean condemning and others like him to lives of suppressed feelings and declining health. Had never backed down from a challenge before. He would not start now. "We will prove it," said with certainty. "We will show them that love is not a human weakness or a primitive emotion. It is a force that exists throughout the universe, in forms as diverse as life itself, and no amount of denial can make it disappear. Are experiencing, they deserve the chance to choose their own path. And if you are wrong..." Looked at the data one more time. The patterns were clear as starlight. "I am not wrong. The evidence is right here. Now I just need to help the galaxy see what has been hidden in plain sight all along." Sophie squeezed his shoulder. "Then let us make sure they cannot ignore it." "Then we better be very sure," Sophie said, "because you are about to diagnose an alien with something his entire species says is impossible." Nodded slowly. The challenge ahead was not just medical, it was cultural. He was a human doctor about to challenge thousands of years of understanding about themselves. But if he was right, he could help understand what was really happening to him, and perhaps help him find the cure that no doctor would ever prescribe. The cure for a heart that had finally learned how to love.